It's a rainy Saturday afternoon, not a great day to be outside. So we decided to go to an antique store, and I had what I think will be a fun and interesting idea. What if I hunted this season with only equipment, only stuff that I bought in an antique store or a secondhand shop or someplace like that? Rex found this Cravatta Brothers Blackhawk recurve. So the Cravatta Brothers owned an archery company starting in the 1950s up through, I think, about the mid-1970s in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Pittsburgh. And they made some really nice bows. They made bows, you know, pretty low-end stuff, but they also made some great hunting bows and some high-end target bows. This one is called the Short Hornet. It's 58 inches long and 45 pounds. And for a secondhand shop find, it's in remarkable condition. I mean, it's got some scuffs and scratches in it that show its age. Overall, just beautiful. I don't know if you can see it there. And one of the things I love about it, I don't think I've ever seen glass of this color on a bow. This is a really dark green, sort of a forest green glass with like a semi-gloss finish on it. Really nice. Beautiful tips, nice deep nocks there to seat your string. Really nice bow all in all. It did not have a string, so we need to get a string put on it and see if it'll shoot and see if this is something that I can actually hunt with this year. I'm pretty confident that it's going to work. So the first thing we have to do is get a string on this baby. I've already gone over all of it to look for cracks or blemishes, and I don't see anything that's unsafe. I've also sighted down the limbs just like this, both ends, top and bottom, to see if there are any twists. Twists happen when people store a bow for decades up on end like this and there's weight, say, on the bottom limb that causes a twist. It can also happen from improper stringing or keeping a strung bow in a hot car, all sorts of reasons. But this one looks like it was well taken care of. The limbs are straight. So let's see if we can find a 58-inch string for it. With some old bows, you're able to date them based on the serial number. With these Blackhawk bows, most years the serial number does work. And this bow has a serial number that ends in 874. I'm interpreting that to mean that it was made in August, the 8th month of the year, in 1974. So 874. Tell you already, this string looks like it's going to be too short. I don't know what's going on, but this bow's marked 58 inches, but it might not actually be 58. Either that or this string is not a 58-inch AMO string. It's not. I can see that. You see that? This distance from here to here is called the brace height. That's got to be close to 9 inches. The brace height on this should be closer to, oh, I don't know, anywhere between maybe 7.5 and 8.5 inches. And this is looking closer to 8.5 or 9. No, it's actually over 9. It's almost 9 1/4. It's, yeah, 9 plus. This string is too short. I could try untwisting it a little bit to make it longer, but untwisting it to get a full inch out of it or more, I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to make the string unsafe. So we're going to try a different one. You may have just seen me put the ends of that string together right there. I'll show you. Whenever I store strings, if you want to keep them from, this is for Flemish twist strings, that if you leave them, if you take a Flemish twist string and just take the pressure off of it, it will untwist and get longer. If you want to keep it the same length so it doesn't untwist while you're storing it, you just take one loop, put it inside the other loop, and then bring that loop back through again, and you end up with that. That keeps your string from untwisting, and it's a great way to store your strings. Strings for recurves, and most other bows, but definitely recurves, usually have loops of 2 different sizes, like that. One big, one little. Big one goes on the upper limb, just like this. and that's so it can slide like this, back and forth. The one with the smaller loop goes on the knock on the bottom limb. So then when we string it, that big loop allows us to slide the string up the limb and seat it in the knock grooves. Just like this, slide it up till it pops in. Now I can tell you that looks much better already. Let's check it. So we're going to measure, to get the brace height, we're going to measure from the deepest part of the grip to the string, and oh yeah, we're basically 7.5, a little more, almost 7 5/8. That's good. We'll have to shoot it to see exactly at what brace height it shoots best. But starting off at about 7.5 to 7 3/4 seems about right for a bow that's 58 inches long and with the amount of deflex that this one has. All right. Well, nothing blew apart when we strung it. We don't put very much stress on the limbs, but this bow is quite old. So I think what we'll do is put some safety glasses on, and I'll put my shooting glove on and just draw it a little bit, and we'll see what happens. I've played around a lot with these old vintage bows. If you inspect them, make sure there's no cracks. Feel around the tips, especially for any separation in the fiberglass. They're usually safe. This thing's almost 50 years old, so you have to be careful. I've had several bows just blow to pieces on me when I pull them back. I think safety glasses are a good idea. So I get a chunk of wood or a chunk of fiberglass in my cheek, I can survive that. I'd like to keep my vision for a few more years, so here we go. Just going to pull a little bit. Don't hear anything. It's always a good idea to just pull a little bit and then inspect it. I didn't hear any cracks. I don't see any cracks. We'll go a little further this time. I'm going to put the scale on this in a minute. This bow is marked 45 pounds at 28 inches, but I'm pretty sure it's heavier than that. I can feel it. Okay, we're going to come to full draw on this one. I think it's okay. Excellent. And of course, you never dry fire a bow, so not release the string without an arrow on it. We just ease it back down. I've got a bow scale here, maybe not the most accurate thing in the world. We do have a scale, so I'm going to throw an arrow on here. And this won't be perfect because I don't have the arrow marked or anything, but I can get fairly close and just get a sense if this thing's way off or not. So this just hooks onto the string. It's got a scale in here with a marked rating, so you can tell what the weight is. We're just going to back to about there. They're a little more than what it's marked. It looks like it's about 47 pounds. Now, like I said, I don't know that I was completely accurate in getting it to the 28 inches, but it looks like 47. It could be off a couple of pounds one way or the other, but not much. Looks like it's as marked. Perfect. I've mostly been shooting bows in the low 50s, so it'd be fun to shoot one a little bit lighter. Looks like that knock height is pretty high. If you can see that or not, you can see this angle coming up this way. I shoot 3 fingers under, so I like a little bit of a high knock. That looks really high. That might need to be adjusted. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that so far. What we need to do now is probably go shoot it and make sure it's going to be a shooter. And if it's a shooter, if it seems like it's okay, we'll come back in the shop and we'll get some string silencers on it. And I can't wait to shoot it with my bow quiver on because it's physically fairly light. We didn't talk about woods at all. I'm pretty good at identifying at least most, of North America's native hardwoods. I'm not as good with some of the tropical hardwoods. This is an interesting one to me. It's clearly made of multiple laminated pieces of wood. To be honest, this almost looks like white oak right here to me, which wouldn't be surprising. This bow was made in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. Some would consider the hardwood capital of the world here in Pennsylvania. It's possible that some of these other woods are walnut or maybe something like shadua. I'm not sure, to be honest. It's physically fairly light, which sort of goes against my notion that this is white oak, but it is just one strip, so hard to say with this one. Earlier in the video, I said I wasn't sure what these woods were, and I just talked to my friend Rich Lopez from Drop Times Traditions, and I sent him some pictures, and he says that he thinks it's shadua and walnut. Sounds like a reasonable guess to me. Rich knows his stuff, so I'm going to trust that he's right about that. Here we go. Now or never. Nice. A good arrow flight. Pretty quiet for no string silencers. Very little hand shock. I shot low, but I think if you remember from earlier, I mentioned that this knock height was pretty high. A high knock height like this will cause your arrow to go down, and I shot low. You can fix that just by bringing the knock height down a little bit to hit more closely to where I'm looking. Ooh. It's not the greatest release in the world. Still a little fidgety with this old bow. You never know when things are going to fly apart. We'll do better on this one. Since I seem to be dropping names, I'll just point out that these custom arrows are made by my friend Gary Hall at D&M Custom Arrows. These things are awesome. Really great. Looks pretty good for first few arrows out of this antique find. Well, I think we'll head back in the shop and get a set of string silencers on this thing. And I want to put my Great Northern bow quiver on here. It's pretty light physical weight in this particular bow. And so I like a bow with a little bit more mass in the riser. So by putting that bow quiver on there, that'll give me the weight I'm looking for and settle it down a little bit. Well, I was just shooting a few arrows into the target here to try to get some footage of them hitting the target, and on my third arrow I came to full draw and I heard a really loud crack somewhere from inside this bow. I don't see anything right off the bat, but that's not a good sign. We might be dead in the water for using this bow for hunting. We'll see. I'm going to unstring it here. We'll take it back in the shop and go over it real well and see what we can see. If it's just a little crack forming somewhere, we might be able to fix it, or it might be too dangerous to shoot. It's disappointing. Bummer. I was really liking this thing. All right, let's go take a look. All right, here we go. The only way I can figure to test this bow safely is with a helmet on. So I've got my father-in-law's welding helmet. Rex is over here. He's got safety glasses on, and he is a safe distance away from me. Put that down so we can see your glasses. I'm going to set the camera up over here, pull the shield down on this here helmet, and we're going to hope that things don't fly to pieces. Just to recap the problem, I was shooting the bow that we got at the antique store was shooting really great and I was super happy. And on the 11th arrow, I heard a pretty substantial crack in the bow. Can't find anything wrong with it, but it definitely made a cracking sound. Something inside there moved. So we need to figure out what it is, and the only way to do that, I think, is to force it to do something more or keep our fingers crossed that it's really okay. Here we go. Testing in 3, 2, 1. Initiating launch. Well, hard to draw with a welding helmet on, but seemed like I was. Could you see me, Rex? Was I drew that pretty far, didn't I?
Go again.
You go again.
No, you do it.
Or go again, Dad.
Yeah, you're coming past your face.
Seems okay. I don't know.
Through the video, but
Well, it seems all right. I mean, my concern is that I've had these bows explode before, not Blackhawks per se, but these vintage bows. It's 50 years old, the glue dries out, it gets bad, and it just no longer holds all of these laminations together as strongly as it needs to. It's bad enough to have one fly apart on you when you're shooting at targets. It's a whole different thing if you're, 15 feet up in a tree stand and one of these babies lets loose. All right, after the helmet test, it seems like this old Blackhawk recurve is going to be safe to shoot. So you just never know about these things, but at least I think it's safe. So I'm going to go ahead and finish setting it up and put some string silencers on it. Everyone does this in a little different way. I take a pretty simple approach. I measure from where the string contacts the limb at each end. So here to right here, and I get 45.5 inches, or I'm sorry, 45 inches. Divide 45 in half is going to give you 22.5, and then divide that in half again to find the place where you want to put your string silencer. So 22.5 gives you the middle of the string, and then half of that gives you equal distance from the center to where the limb contacts the string. So 22.5 divided by 2 is 11.25. So we're going to go from here down to 11.25, which is right here. I'm going to pinch it. It's very scientific. Shoot. Hold of that for a second so I don't lose my pinch. Normally I use twist ties like off of a bread bag or something. I don't have any at the moment, so I'm just going to tie a rubber band on here. Cord it through like that and pull it tight. We'll do the same thing. We're going to measure 11.25. We're going to put our rubber band on. And the reason you need to mark this is when I take the bow down and take pressure off the string to put the string silencers on, you're not going to know where these spots are. There's, your string's going to move around. So those rubber bands then here and here represent where I'm going to tie the string silencers. I'm using these churro wool silencers. I love these things. They hold together extremely well. I like the color, I like the weight. Each pack is grain matched, so these are 28 grains. So I know that each one of these is 28 grains, and I don't have, say, 40 grains on one end of my string and the other. And then these are just tied through the center to make sort of a figure 8. And what I do, I don't think it's a good idea to put your bowstring through that point where this is tied off. So what I do is I find that, I turn the silencer 90 degrees and open this up that way. The silencer will puff out real good and make a lot of surface area to help silence your string. What I do on twist ties or rubber bands is just slide this thing out of the way. A little easier with a twist tie, but just slide that up. Now right here's my spot. Open up these strands, open this right in half basically, just like that. Work my silence. To do this right, on a Flemish twist string, need to tie them or anything. That'll just stay in place. That'll just stay there. When I start shooting it, I string the bow. This is going to get tighter. The string is going to clinch down on the string silencer. And when I start shooting it, this is going to fuzz out, puff up, and give us lots of surface area to dampen the sound. Let's open this up. This opening. This bow is going to sound much different with these string silencers on. Even before we shoot it, when I pluck this string, instead of going doing, doing, and getting all those harmonic vibrations from energy that goes back through the bow, that energy is going to get sucked up by those string silencers and not go back into the bow, or at least not as much of it. Our brace height has dropped a little since our first setup. That's because our string has stretched some. It's down to 7.5 inches. I'm just going to leave it there and let it continue to stretch in. With this bow, I think probably around 7 3/4 is going to be a better brace height for us. Just be a little quieter. I'm not someone who tends to like really low brace heights. I think we'll be all right. Let's just hope it doesn't creak and crack anymore. The last thing we're going to do to set this bow up for today is to mount the bow quiver. I really want this on here for some additional weight. And my favorite bow quiver is the Great Northern Adjustable Quiver. It adjusts to match the length of the riser. So you can see right now it's too long. It's the mount area is ending up out here pretty, substantially on the lower limb down from the fade out. I'd prefer it to be above the fade up in here on the riser, because that's a sort of a complete non-working part of the bow. It's going to have a more solid attachment. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide these two rods are connected by a rubber sleeve, and to adjust it you just push them together a little bit. There, we just closed that up probably 1.5 inches, just that quick. Yeah, I got that pretty close right off the bat. I'm going to bring it up just a little shorter. I want this bottom mount to be up into the riser a little bit more than it is. I used to worry about wrapping these things so tight. I'd pull and yank and carry on. And I learned not too long ago that you really don't need to do that. I mean, you just need a fairly tight wrap now. And that's enough. That'll keep it on there plenty solid. Now, if you get some, some noise or some vibration, you can undo that rubber strap and pull it, tighten it up a little more. But, I mean, honestly, that's not going anywhere. Here. Sweet. That'll be a nice setup. I like that extra weight already. Looks really nice too. All right, so I think that'll be it for the day. We brought this bow home from the antique shop. Got a string on it, put string silencers on it. We've got our quiver mounted and some arrows in the quiver. Shot it a few times and it shot beautifully, but that crack really scared the heck out of me. It seems to be fine now, and I can't find any trouble with it. I've been messaging back and forth with my friend Rich Lopez at Drop Tines Traditions, and we've been tossing around some ideas, and nothing seems like it's fatal with this thing at the moment. I'm just going to shoot it cautiously and see what happens. If you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out a lot. This is fun. I hope you can tell that we're having fun, but it's also how we make our living. And so, if you can subscribe, that really helps us. Good morning, everyone. So it's October 9th. This is one of the first cool nights we've had in October. It's in the low 40s, and I'm sitting that ground blind that I built a couple of weeks ago. I just got settled in. There's barely enough light to see. You'll be able to see the you'd be able to see the corner of the bean field out here as the sun's coming up. That's looking roughly to the southeast. Might have a problem with the sun shining in our eyes as the morning goes on, but I'm gonna get this camera set up, get my bow ready to go with an arrow nocked, and we'll just wait and see what happens. I've got some oak trees behind me that are dropping acorns, and I've got a corner of this bean field out here. I'm hoping to catch deer coming out of the beans and back into the corn over here. Well, it's been a beautiful morning, but I think I'm going to call it. No deer. The fox squirrels and gray squirrels have been out collecting their acorns for the winter and burying them. I've had a blast just watching them here in the woods just to my left. I thought maybe some deer would come from the beans over here and come back through this little neck of forest or go over here into the corn to bed, but I didn't see anything. It's surprising how few deer there are in this woodlot. It's not ideal deer hunting, but you know, you'd expect to see more in here, and I usually don't. No complaints though. What a great morning. Beautiful little breeze coming out of the southeast. Temperatures in the low 40s. My hands are actually getting a little chilly, which is nice. It hasn't been that way this fall, so I'm gonna pack up here and we'll head back and see Debbie and the kids and get a nice hot cup of coffee. Oh, I'm so bummed. This morning I was hunting in my ground blind with my vintage Black Hawk bow, my antique store find, and it was making a little ticking sound on me, so I decided to give it a test pull while I was sitting in my ground blind. I was just about ready to head home, and boom! The thing delaminated. Basically, the limb delaminated right from where it was glued to the riser. Made a loud cracking sound, and not 2 minutes later I look up and here comes a doe right down the edge, right where I wanted her to be, and look what I have. So all I could do was sit and watch. What a morning this has been. Oh my goodness. Well, I guess if we're gonna hunt this year with antique store fine bows, I got some work to do because this one is not fixable.